do you regret, let's say, a lot of women have gotten divorced by the time they're 40s or 50s, right? I'm like, well, what do you regret? When you start working out what the word regret means to them, they wish they had known better. It's like, but you didn't. And what have you learned from that? Well, how are you using this now for the women you are now? What is your purpose now? And then what are your goals now? And you can really grow from that. It's like, okay, this is who I am now, and this is what I've learned, and this is what I won't accept. This is what I will accept for myself. And that's good.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, where we are reimagining and redefining what it means to be in midlife, where we are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, my friend. I want to start off by saying that I'm guessing your load feels heavy right now. I imagine you might be feeling overwhelmed. Maybe that's because that's how I've been feeling. There's a lot going on in the world. But here's the thing. Humans are resilient creatures, and you are human. Yay! You know, the news of the day comes and goes. And when it comes down to it, our ancestors survived some tough times. And you already have too. And so we can going forward as well. And when we come together to support each other, we grow even stronger. You know, if you're feeling tired of lifting that load by yourself or feeling lonely, I want to let you know that you don't have to go it alone. I've been learning that lesson over and over ever since I started this podcast, and especially since hosting the Midlife Uprising Summit. Just how amazing for everybody to come together to get that done. And so many of my guests on the podcast have told me that they succeeded in turning their lives around or getting past being stuck because they sought help, whether through a life coach or a group program of some sort. And it's something I hear consistently. Also, did you know that loneliness is actually dangerous for your health? Seriously, a report from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine points out that more than 1/3 of adults aged 45 and older feel lonely. I'm raising my hand right now because I was certainly feeling that way when I was in my 40s. Recent studies found that social isolation significantly increased a person's risk of premature death from all causes. It's a risk that can rival those smoking, obesity, physical inactivity, and social isolation was associated with about a 50% increased risk of dementia. I mean, let that sink in for a little bit. So a few years ago, I was introduced to the idea of picking a word for the year. You know, picking a word, you may have heard of this, picking a word that can act as like a kind of a North Star and help you set your intentions for the year. My word for 2022 is community. And I've decided to lean into that word by starting the Midlife Uprising community for women who are ready to make waves as they get older. I'm very excited about this. So if you want some companionship and support, I invite you to join us. I am having a launch party on July 12th. It'll be on Zoom at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can get more information at midlifeuprising.com about the whole shebang and sign up to join the community. And if you join before July 1st, you'll get the first 3 months as a trial membership to see if it's a good fit for you. So that said, my guest today is Ronnie Loiza. She's also known as Ronnie Lo, the life coach. Ronnie started off her career in news broadcasting, but she found a passion for fitness and wellness in her 40s that led her to changing her career to become a personal trainer. And then she realized she was spending a good bit of time talking to her clients about mindset. So now, in her late 50s, she's pivoting to become a holistic life coach. So I'm just going to let her tell her story. Without further ado, Here's Ronnie Loiza. Let's go. Hey, Ronnie, thank you so much for being with me today.
Hello, I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks. So I always like to say how I met people. You and I have kind of crossed paths here and there in Clubhouse. We connected and poof, here we are. Here we are. Although it's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been it's been over 6 months, but that doesn't mean we haven't seen each other. It just means it took us a while to actually connect to do your wonderful podcast. But yeah, I was teasing you this morning, but I'll share with your following and your audience is I do calisthenics every morning. That became a habit during the pandemic. When this first started and COVID closure started in March 2020, I was a personal trainer. And I thought I was a badass being able to do like 20 push-ups, because women just don't do push-ups. We just don't.
I'm pretty proud of my 40 or 50 push-ups, I will say.
That's awesome.
It took me a while to get there. I used to have to go on the knees, and it was a slow buildup.
Oh, your toes. You do them on the toes.
I'm on the toes, baby.
Excellent. Yeah. And so I started adding, seriously, Yvonne, I started adding 1 or 2 a morning. That's it. And I got up to 60. I'm like, well, I'll just keep going. I got up to 80. I'll just keep going. So I got up to 100. And the reason I don't go over 100, sometimes 110, I'll polish off on the knees because I do the toes, is because I only give myself 3 to 5 minutes of calisthenics. It started out with 1 minute a morning. And it just goes to show it starts here. Of course, it's physical, but it starts here. It's like just one
it starts
more.
with the decision, right? It starts
one more squat. So this morning I was going to get together with you and I was downstairs to do my calisthenics. And I have to connect it. I call it habit chaining. I have to link it to something. So I say I'm brushing my teeth because my calisthenics are part of brushing my teeth. In other words, if I'm brushing my teeth, I have to do the calisthenics first. It's just part of it. And that's how you can habit. So before I did anything, and I turned on Clubhouse to scroll through real quick if I could listen to some kind of yay, people share wins or a great morning thing. And I saw your name. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's on here already.
Oh my goodness, I'm a little embarrassed because I talk about Clubhouse all the time. I don't know about you, but I've met so many incredible people, had so many great conversations, learned so much, and connected with people outside of Clubhouse. It's crazy.
But it's funny because it's bled over. I hope bled's the right grammatical tense. It's bled over to let's connect on Instagram. And then I've done people's podcasts and they've been on as my guests on my Facebook. And I feel like we're friends. Like I noticed your name this morning and I've never met you in person one-on-one, but the connection has been really good. If you use social media in the right way, that is, you don't use it as an excuse to hide behind, to procrastinate, to do your work or your family. If you use it the right way, it's a great way to get out there and meet people, collaborate, just become friends, inspire people, be inspired, and also to get a following and to find people who will need your services.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ronnie, I want to go back to before you were doing your life coaching for women, because you coach women in midlife, right?
Yes. Well, no, not just midlife. I happen to be in midlife and I started out with women in midlife, but women in their 30s and 20s and 40s were tapping on me for advice. And I thought, well, why should I just say midlife just because I'm in midlife? I thought that's all the women I could attract. But midlife now, and I'll let you go on. Sorry, I know I interrupted. Midlife, Yvonne, haven't you really found that it's whatever the woman defines as midlife? I have women in
it's a huge swath
who have kids in college, and I have women in their 50s who have kids in elementary school. And I find women in their 60s who are saying they're in midlife. So really, it's become whatever you decide midlife is.
Right. It's a big unidentified window of time because who knows when you're going to die. So how do you define the middle, really, and we're living longer and longer. So, it just explain, and I go back and look at this. And when I first started the podcast, I was thinking 50-ish because that's where I was. And then as I looked at my own journey, I realized that my midlife journey started in my mid-30s. That's when some of my values started to change. What I wanted started to change. And it's just incredible. And now I kind of feel like I might claim midlife until maybe I'm until maybe I'm in my 60s or 70s. I don't
70s. Yeah.
know.
Well,
It's
see,
like, you know.
don't you find that a lot of women, I'm not going to say most, I shouldn't say most, a lot of women started reinventing themselves now in the past 2 years, in the past 3 years, and we're all in our 50s or late 40s or early 60s because life is changing. And it's like, okay, am I redefining myself? What is my life purpose? And I know that sounds all woo woo, but the thing is, your life purpose, you have to go back to your core values and remind yourself, what is my life purpose? What are my core values? And we have grown with our experiences. And maybe that has changed. Maybe our core values have changed, or a few of them, or we've tweaked them. And what is my purpose now, starting today and on? And I know my midlife, this may sound a little, I don't know, vain, but I was made midlife because of looks. I realized I'm still going at it like I did in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s as far as my ambition and my drive, but I've got wrinkles. So I realized society is looking at me and calling me ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, okay. And then I look at myself like, oh yeah, I got the jowls dropping. Okay. But I don't feel so-called old or whatever midlife is supposed to be, other than I've got the experience now that I wish I had in my 20s. I don't live in regret, but I don't consider regret a bad word. What do you think of the word regret, by the way? Because I don't consider it a bad word. If you regret something, I see it as a lesson.
I don't think I don't think you can get through life without regrets. But hopefully you don't beat yourself up over them for too long,
No.
and you use that like failure. I think failure gets a bad rap when all it is it's a life lesson. It's a
Like, oops, that failed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well that too means if you look at it, if you reframe the idea around failure,
Mhm.
it means that you tried something that was a little beyond your reach, and good for you. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Hopefully we're all doing that all the time. So the more you can fail, the better. And eventually then you're gonna tip the balance of, oh, okay, now I can do that thing that I wasn't able to do back then.
exactly. And the word regret can mean a lot of things. And I'm finding in my coaching that women are living with regret. It's like, well, let's look at that relationship with you, with the word regret with you. Do you regret, let's say, a lot of women have gotten divorces by the time they're 40s or 50s, right? I'm like, well, what do you regret? When you start working out what the word regret means to them, um, they wish they had known better. It's like, but you didn't. And what have you learned from that? Well, how are you using this now for the woman you are now? What is your purpose now? And then what are your goals now? And you can really grow from that. It's like, okay, this is who I am now, and this is what I've learned, and this is what I won't accept. This is what I will accept for myself. And that's good. And that's a good thing. So not wallowing in the past, but moving on, being now in the present is, I mean, that's what meditation is all about, isn't it? It's just being right now, every second, right now. That doesn't mean you don't have a back history. That doesn't mean you don't have thoughts sit into your mind while you meditate. It's like, okay, that's a thought. Okay, that's a thought. And then there's the future, but don't live in the future either. Look forward to the future. But if you live in the now, the mindfulness, regret's okay because that helps you define or set where you are now, where you were then, and where you want to be. So it's really our relationship with our thought work with certain words: regret, failure, what is success, fear. It's all what you think it is, what you define it to be. I do a lot of thought work. That's why. And thoughts lead into emotions, and our emotions are what guide us into our actions, right?
Yeah. So now, did you always have this mindset, or is that something that came to you through an event, a life event? Is it something that you developed over time through doing some work for yourself? Tell me more about that, because I saw you shake your head.
God, I wish I knew this in my 30s. No, I'm really doing more thought work. That's kind of I don't want to say style, but I guess it is a style of coaching, because I had to be coached and I had to learn a lot. I kid around, and I guess we can back engineer it. I kid around that my clients turned me into a coach because it was my personal training clients that started talking to me. So let's backtrack to 2020. Through that summer and that fall, a lot of my clients would talk to me after their sessions or off our sessions about their friends and their colleagues and their family who were just having a really hard time, even though they might not admit it, with all the COVID things. Their kids were at home, they were on Zoom, everybody was working off the dining room table, the partner was home, and even though women pulled their big girl pants up and took care of business, a lot of women were either in charge of their staff or in charge of their business. So they were always on from 3 a.m. till 9 p.m, and there were no barriers, or they were afraid of being indispensable, not being indispensable, and being let go, because there were a lot of furloughs and stuff at the time. So people were going, and they still are. It's like, it's hybrid. You're allowed to go back. You're not. Do I want to? The kids are now going back to school. We're still going through this. So a lot of women let fitness, back to the personal training, just fall off that calendar. Fitness was the first thing that goes, like, I have no time. When at the time it was my mission, like, any woman at any age, at any fitness level, no matter what your schedule is, can fit fitness in your life. And why is it important? No, not to look great in a bikini, although that's nice, but it's because your health affects every single aspect of your life. Your brain, whether you have brain fog, your clarity of thinking, your productivity, so you can be a badass woman in your career, so you can be more present in your relationships, have a better sex life, be more present with your family, be more present for yourself. It affects every aspect of your life. Your health affects every subset of your life.
It really does. It really does. That was huge for me. I'm healthier now at 53 than I was all through my 40s. And part of it is that when I turned 48, I realized I hit the wall and I couldn't focus, and I was lonely and had a little bit of anger and different things going on. And I realized I needed to change some stuff. So I started getting up in the morning. I gave myself a 30-day challenge to get up before my kids every morning and meditate and exercise. And I had dabbled in both and always felt better when I did. I always said I did yoga, but frankly, it was inconsistent at best. And I would constantly find that I would push myself too far in the beginning. I'd have an injury, and then I would stop, and then it would be weeks while I was healing. I'm putting that in quotes, but I didn't find something else to do. So now I'm like, no, I move my body every day. That's my commitment to myself. Whether it's yoga, whether it's walking, whether it's something else. And the difference is incredible what it does for my mindset. To move my body every day is a total game changer. Okay, so I want to back up with you. Before you became a coach, so now I have you in my head as a health and wellness coach, and now what I'm hearing is that you're kind of doing a lot of mindset work that has evolved. And before you ever started doing any of the coaching, tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, where did you come up against the wall, and what were the things that you found out you had to overcome to get you to where you are now?
Well, I just want to add to what you said. When I was a trainer, and now especially, what you went through is so common. Therefore, you're normal. People start off like, I'm going to do this all now, especially with the New Year's resolutions. Boom, boom, boom. They stumble over themselves. It takes time. We didn't get to be 42, 47, 52, knowing all this and doing things. When you were born, you didn't know how to brush your teeth. Your mom had to teach you. It takes time to condition yourself and to condition temperature program. So it takes time to reprogram your body and your mindset. So too many people start off with like, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, or I'm going to work out hard in that garage 4 times a week. And they go to CrossFit and they do the YouTube videos, and then they burn out, they injure themselves, or forget it. So it really should start off slowly. And habits are much better and easier to form. That is working out, whatever, meditating, journaling, if you enjoy it. So find what you enjoy doing. Because when I do a workout plan with my clients, and so we start off with a calendar, and I'm like, okay, what do you do on Monday? What do you do on Tuesday? Well, I can. It's like, no, don't say you will, or you probably can. What will you realistically do? Or when people ask me, Pilates or yoga? Yes. What? Which one will you do? So it's like, or any diet in the whole wide world on the face of the earth works if you do it. So you said the word consistency. So anything works if you enjoy it and if you do it. Yeah. So start off slowly. And with me, I'll answer your question now. I was in journalism. I was a news anchor reporter since 1997. I was a producer. And well, before then, I was a producer. And then in 97, I got on air. And I was a TV reporter in San Diego for years. Well, first I started off in Palm Springs, the small market. Then I went to Fresno, and then I went to San Diego. And my parents were there. My sister was there. I moved to Los Angeles because of life-changing things. My husband and I were incompatible. I love him to this day. He loves me, but we were incompatible from the first date. But I was young and stupid, and I mean that in a good way. And actually, I wasn't that young. I got married at 33 the first time, but to me, I was young. And we stayed together 12 years, but he asked me to give it one more go because we were thinking of splitting. And he moved to LA, and I gave up my TV job, and I moved to Los Angeles, and I went on radio, which I loved. But that's how I kind of transitioned. I made my decision I'm going to follow him. I'm going to give it one more go. We stayed together 5 years. We got a divorce. Very amicable. We were best friends.
Yeah.
Friends, I should say, not best
That's
friends.
an accomplishment in and of itself to do it amicably. Congrats.
And
and it's a hard thing to give up something clearly that you were dedicated, clearly your commitment was there. You made the move, you did all the work. And, and I've been there. I did get married too young the first time around, and still love still love him, still think he's a great guy, but was not the right match,
Yeah, the right
had
match.
to move on. Yeah. And but kudos to you for being able to amicably make that transition. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So then what? You're there in LA, and
Well, that's just it. You can do all the counseling. We got marriage counseling, you can do everything. But if you're not ready to work on yourself and decide, okay, what do I really want? And it's okay. And I just thought my marriage failed. I just didn't want to be a failure at my marriage, and I wanted to give it all my go because I'm a nice Catholic girl. So I had to pray on it, and I can't get divorced. Oh my God. So that was my story. But finally, we got to split. And in the meantime, I was in LA and my hip started hurting. What does that have to do with anything? Well, my hip was hurting all the time. Then my butt was hurting. It's like, what is going on? So I finally went to one of the best doctors, Western medical doctor. I say that for a reason. And barely looked at me, Yvonne. Prescription pad. He gave me a patch. And I'm like, well, what's this for? Well, I had degenerative disc disease. Well, that sounds horrible. Because at the time I didn't know what that was.
Say it again. It was a little weird on the sound. It was a degenerative what disease?
Degenerative disc disease.
Disc
When you hear disease, you're like, what?
Yeah.
So I looked up, and I'm the kind that asks a million questions in anything to this day. But he just would not spend the time of day with me. Well, degenerative disc disease just means the liquid between your vertebrae is drying up. And it's happening to you right now as you're sitting there. We're getting older. It happens. But it just made it sound so horrible. And I'm like, okay, the medicine isn't fixing it. It's just making the pain go away when I have it on, the patch. So I went to another doctor. 4 chiropractors later, decompression with the machine, which made me feel worse. I still didn't understand. What had happened now, but then I found out later, is remember aerobics?
Mm-hmm.
No cardio. But I just pounded the heck out of my body I jogged, I did the step classes, I did the Jane Fondas, I did all that. I really was not into weights. Once in a while, I don't know if you remember Nautilus, I started dabbling in the machines. What are these? Yeah. But I counted my body, and after all of these chiropractors and Western medical doctors, and one doctor wanted to fuse my spine, thank goodness I didn't do it. My husband came home, my ex now. I said, I just went to a health fair and I talked to this chiropractor. I'm like, I've been to 4. He's like, well, just go. It's a free consultation. I went to this doctor, and he was just looking at me. He kind of looked at my spine. He's like, it sounds like you just need to learn how to work out properly. I'm like, okay. He put me with a corrective exercise specialist personal trainer. Within 2 weeks, I didn't hurt anymore.
Wow.
And she taught me how to strength train properly, proper form. And I was so into doing all this research, and I was reading, blah, 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 blah. I talked to her for almost a year. My insurance paid for it. And she said, and I was 46. Well, I was 45, turning 46. She's like, you need to become a personal trainer. You need to be a personal trainer. I'm like, I'm in my 40s. I'm in news. No, I was in PR at the time and news, doing radio. I'm like, I was never an athlete, ever. And she's like, well, you just need to do it because women will relate to you and you know how to explain things and you're so into it.
Mm-hmm.
So a year later, at 46, I woke up one morning. I thought, what do I want to be the next 20 years of my life? I think I'll be a personal trainer. I mean, who does that? And, people were like, it's going to take you a long time. You're going to fail this test because I decided to do NASM and that's the hardest one. I'm like, no, I don't have time to fail. I did the Audible. I was always power walking, listening to the lessons, doing the flashcards, passed on the first go. So at 46, I started training. Skinned my knees with that, learned a lot of lessons about customer service, guest relations, because I just wanted to pour all this knowledge and my enthusiasm. It's like, people have to go slow. Okay. So I learned a lot about
was it like you were giving them information like drinking from a fire hydrant?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, too much.
People are excited at first, but then they burn out. So,
yeah.
So I learned a lot, mostly about the human psyche. And as you go on as a personal trainer, you have to keep getting certified every 2 years. So in my continuing education, I would take things like, how do you train people who do martial arts? Not doing martial, I didn't get certified in doing martial arts. How do you train people who do martial arts? How do you train? I got certified in senior fitness. I got my silver sneaker certification. I got TRX. So I have a lot of those. So I learned a lot. I even started training women who would come to me. I have to get pregnant. They would talk to me about their hormones. So I'd have to do my homework about it. Or I am pregnant. It's like, well, if I'm doing all this homework, I may as well get certified. So I got a certification. I studied for over a year for the postnatal and pregnancy fitness. So I learned a lot. But the more I learned about the human body, the more I learned, Yvonne, about it all starts here, especially pregnant women. You were pregnant, you had kids, I didn't. I found from a handful of pregnant women that I trained that even though there have been billions of women who have had babies, each one of those women was different in her experience.
Yeah.
Not one was alike. Some had stuff and some didn't,
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy. So, okay. Wow. So you found all these specializations within that you studied, and it sounds like, I mean, how awesome that, you found something that was that you felt driven by clearly. And it sounds like it was really fulfilling for you right out of the gate to be helping people with their fitness.
Because women and men, because I trained a lot of men at the time in the beginning, would always come to me with their problems and their barriers, like I can't do this, I can't do that, or injuries, I even trained a gentleman in a wheelchair, and he taught me a lot. I trained 2 legally blind people, but my point was I always wanted to bring people to, you can work out, you can exercise your muscles and your body, and your heart is a muscle. You just can't take it out of your body and pump iron, so you have to let it go faster and slower. You can work out and exercise at any fitness level, no matter what challenge you may have, and at any age. That was like my mission. I was 46 and I was a personal trainer, and I still am till 56. But when COVID hit, I was 54. My mission was that, and it's evolved since then. Yeah, because at the time, what fulfilled me was showing people that you can work out no matter what. Really.
What have you learned about yourself in this journey of going from being in journalism and PR and making that switch to the personal training? Like, what did you learn about yourself in making that shift at 46?
Okay, 2 things. You kind of triggered something. I became a reporter because everybody told me to. And when you're young, and I may not look that great here on camera here and now, but
you look awesome. Stop.
It really was about looking cute. It's like, but you've got the thing for it. And since I was a behind the scenes person in my 20s, I would set up everything, logistics, field producing for all the correspondents. And I would get in front of the camera and do like the mic checks and make sure the camera guy set up right. And I would do the stand up so that the lady would know what to do, or the correspondent. And so a lot of the cameramen were like, you're good at this. You should do this. And then when I came back to the States, because I did this in France, by the way, I worked for CBS News in France. And I worked for different sports things like Roland Garros, the Tour de France. I would just set up stuff, logistics. When I came back, I really should have become a producer because I was good at getting things together. But but somebody gave me a shot of weather and it was so ridiculous. It was in Palm Springs because the green screen was behind me. I was like pointing to Minnesota when I should have been pointing to Colorado. I mean, it was ridiculous, but I
I can't
did
imagine how hard that is.
it. It was fun.
Suddenly,
And
you're like the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz, right? With
oh, that's funny. That's true. And but I did it, and so people kept saying, "Well, you're on air now." And since I was on air and people wanted to be on air, I became a reporter. And it was because people said, "Well, you're a reporter now." And then I was anchoring, and it's like, but I never really liked the business. And I'll go into that. But the higher you get in the business, God, competition and not in the best. I didn't like that part. I should have really become a producer because my favorite part of reporting was when I would come back from the story and write the script and sit with the editor and choose the shots and choose the sound bites. I loved the creative part of it. But I learned to listen more to myself. That's what you learn in your 30s, 40s, whatever. So in transitioning as a personal trainer, what I loved was that sense of fulfillment. It's like, how do you describe that ping, Yvonne? That ping is what I call it. It's like, I'm good at this and I'm helping people. When I was a reporter, I was okay. I was a good reporter. I was a good anchor, but I didn't get that ping unless I got the great stories and the story for some reason fulfilled me because the people liked it. My favorite stories were really people stories. I didn't like the who, what, when, where, why I'm at a shooting. I didn't like the drive-bys. I didn't like all that.
Yeah.
I was good at it, but I didn't like it, and then, and I hated the ones where I'm sorry your son died. How do you feel? Type of stories. They feel, but those where if it bleeds, it leads. And I just didn't like the business anymore of local news. I know I'm putting it down, but it's true. And when I made the decision to leave, it really was one of those stories. I'm like, I don't like this anymore. So then I just became a radio anchor and I liked that. I was on the mic, I was in studio, I would anchor. But then I left for personal reasons in 2016. And the reason I have gone into coaching and studying to be certified is because I find myself on Zoom and being able to work online. And for the rest of my life, I decided I want to do this because everybody needs a coach, whether you call it a coach or you're in group coaching, because you're always growing and evolving. And it's hard to make decisions by yourself, but it really is in there.
It really is. I find that I get myself in this loop chain, and it's so helpful to have somebody to bounce that stuff off of, and important that it's not necessarily somebody who is part of your life. I love that you said that everybody needs a coach. And even if it's not a one-on-one coach, if you can at least find a group of people where you can, a community where you can coach each other. And that is the one thing in doing this podcast, that when I talk to people like you and you've made a change, there's been a coaching aspect to it, that everybody seems to have had to have gotten help from somebody else. And I've always been a kind of pull myself up by my bootstraps and do things myself kind of girl. And at this age, I'm finally realizing I'm limiting myself by not letting myself get help.
It's not advice, because listen, I had mentors and I had leaders lead me. I allowed myself. Now I know this. I allowed myself to be led into a career that I really didn't want, or a part of that aspect that I didn't really want. So if I had been coached in my 30s, because I always thought, what the heck is a coach? Because my sister and some other people told me, you should be a life coach. You should be a coach, blah, 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 blah. Years ago, I'm like, who gets life coaches? Like the Real Housewives? I mean, and I thought, okay, executive coaches, people who have a lot of money and they're up there. I really thought coaching is for rich people. That was my bias. I had no idea until I started looking into it. It's like, no, and there are like 17 types of coaches. I mean, there are menopause coaches, There are career coaches. There are lifestyle, which is different from life coaching, holistic
Yeah, and
coaching.
you may start with one coach for
Yeah,
something in particular, and then okay, your time with them is was good and solid, and now it's time. Okay, let's check out a coach for something else and see where you. I always think the more we can stay curious about ourselves and our
yeah,
journey, and stay open to what's next, that what you wanted yesterday may not be what you want
yeah.
tomorrow. You know.
And and I found that I started off as a fitness coach. I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm going to do. And then I called myself a wellness coach. That's probably why you heard that on Clubhouse over a year ago or like a year ago, because I thought, well, I'm in health, I'm in fitness, so I'll call myself a wellness coach. But the more I got into it, it's like, do I really want to just focus on this aspect, just the wellness and health and fitness? And I found that no, I really am a holistic. And I found out also holistic is just means tying the mind and the body. So
Mm.
take care of every aspect. So I now understand what a holistic coach is. And again, I thought it was woo woo. So I had to go on, just the dictionary. What is holistic? And then I started exploring that. So I have evolved in this past year. It's a
Yeah, and I just want to address the word woo woo because it has so many negative connotations, right? I mean,
yeah,
it is. It's really a negative word, the way it gets used. And the thing is that the woo woo stuff is backed by science. The more you look at it, like if you really do the research on, people talk about manifestation and that triggers woo woo
yeah.
alarm bells all over the place, right? But it really all manifestation is your reticular activating system of your brain.
You know that word?
Yeah,
Yay.
looking for evidence, right? And
Yes.
then manifesting because you're paying attention, and what you pay attention to is what ends up coming into your life. And so if you're paying attention to the bad stuff and what you don't want, you're just going to bring more of it into your life because you're paying all that attention to it. It just keeps sucking it back in. And if you're paying attention to where you want to go, what you want, what you're dreaming of, then you start seeing possibilities everywhere. The brain's amazing that way, right?
You hit it on the nail because our lizard brains just want to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start giving yourself pieces of evidence of first your capabilities, so you're not lying to yourself, your capabilities. Well, here's evidence that I'm capable of this. It's true. So, and you give yourself okay, I could be a coach because I have coached. When I was talking to my clients and I wasn't being paid for it, I was coaching them. And so much that they said, you should be a coach. Well, there's the evidence. Or I have abundance. Whenever I pick up a penny or I find $1 in my jeans before the laundry or whatever, it's like, I have abundance. It's your reframe. You're telling your brain, okay, that's evidence or whatever it is, your capabilities. And then you start giving it evidence of the reality. Like you started doing push-ups, like you started doing after the challenge, you do something every day. You're not only capable of it, you're doing it. So that's how you progress. So it's true. And manifest is a noun, like here's my manifest destiny or my manifest in a ship, but it's also a verb. It's action. I am creating, I am manifesting. It's not like you're calling it in and wishing it. You're manifesting it. It's actually a verb. All the actions you're taking from your decision, okay, take stock. What is it that I really want? And then you take actions. Like, how does that make you feel? Does that align with my core values? Does that align with my mission statement? So you start with a big mission statement, but then all your other actions, your daily actions, your daily decisions come from that. And of course, like you said, your lizard brain is going to go back to, I don't want this, or I do want this, because it's just trying to protect you from change. Man does not like change. We have to say, why do we want change? And then the reason why you want that change is what drives you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just really about getting out of your own way, isn't it? Oh my goodness. And
And
that's
that's
where
what
we get into the habit chain. Okay, so let's talk about habits, and then
okay.
time is just flying. I'm loving this.
Yeah, it is.
But let's talk about habits real quick. If you wouldn't mind, just give your best tip or the first thing that comes to mind to somebody who knows that they need to make a change, and it's something that they've been, whether it's weight loss, whether it's whatever it is, they just not get, they're not able to get themselves to do the thing. Like they've been trying to willpower their way through stuff. What can they do habit wise that might tip the balance for them?
Well, first I like to say, I put together a really fun, I'm no artist, but I went into Canva and I made this PDF with pictures and a little graph. And it's in my Instagram bio. If you go in my link tree, it's Ronnie Lowe Life Coach, Ronnie Lowe Life Coach on Instagram.
Great.
You'll see I think I called it easy peasy habit stacking. And it's my artwork. So I'm like a third grader when it comes to art, but it has a list of actionable things you can do and suggestions and ideas, but mainly it's bullet pointed. So it outlines what a habit is and what habit stacking is.
That's fantastic. I will put that in show notes for people to link to as well. So we'll have it in a couple places for people. Okay.
Good. So it's free. But the main thing, I call it habit chaining, whatever it is. First of all, you have to give yourself a reason, or people do habits because of the instant gratification of however that makes you feel. Whether it's, biting your nails, or I'm going to go get something to eat right now because it's emotional, whether it's a bigger thing, or I don't work out. Okay, I'm going to start small. Okay, so let's call it the push-ups, right? I chained it like a link chain to brushing my teeth. So to me, brushing my teeth includes doing my push-ups. In other words, it's not two different things. I'm not adding something to my calendar. I'm making a minute, and it's part of brushing my teeth. I cannot brush my teeth until I do my push-ups. Let's say you want to just get in a little walk. As soon as you get home from work, or as soon as you finish your work, if you're at home, you tie it to something you already do. Do you have to walk the dog? Okay, I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to take a brisk walk. Or I'm going to start dinner for the family. Starting dinner, the definition of that is 10 minutes of exercise and then start the dinner. So the 10 minutes of exercise is part of your routine. It's not, I'm going to let it go because I got to start. No, I cannot start dinner unless I do, 5 minutes of exercise. See what I'm saying? It's like pain it.
And it makes a difference, right? 5 or 10 minutes of exercise. I mean, you might think, well, what's the point? But it makes a big difference just to do that. And part of that, if you tell me if I'm on track here, but this has been my experience of it, is even if I only do 5 or 10 minutes, I can still say to myself, I did exercise for today. I moved my body for today. And what it creates in me is a trust in myself that I did what I said I was going to do. Even if it wasn't, like, I try to do a minimum of 20 minutes, but if I can't, it's like, okay, 5, 10, that's what I could do today. And I didn't do nothing. And then confidence comes from that.
It does, but I invite you, Yvonne, right there, 2 things. You said the word only. Take your lipstick and put a big red cross over the word only.
Okay.
I did 5 minutes. Yes, happy day. That dinner. Or let's start that breakfast. I only did 20 minutes. I wanted to do 20 minutes. No, I'm going to do 5 minutes right now and celebrate that win, because physically, when you celebrate, or you do a little gopher dance from Caddyshack, or you give yourself a high five in the mirror, or whatever it is you do, physically it connects with your brain. It's like triumph. And I have yet to meet one person, who the second they finish a workout, whether by themselves or in training with me, that feels like, I regret just having worked out.
Never. The hard part is getting to it.
Yes.
I'm always happy I did it. Always.
Yes. You feel that sense of accomplishment. So when I do 5 minutes, like, yes. And if you do 5 minutes 4 times a day, that adds up to 20 minutes,
Yeah.
So find what works for you. But whatever habit it is, let's say for some people, they just don't want to journal. It's like, I don't have time. I'm going to write about and that is something else that I have coached people on, because I thought I wasn't a journaler. There's so many ways of starting. Maybe doodle, maybe sketch, maybe write 3 things a morning. That's it. It opens you up to just thinking. It doesn't have to be the free-flowing creative, I have to write 5 pages. It can be just a few doodles. I had a lady who just did lines, and then like you draw a line and then a line from it, and then another line. And she was just doing it mindlessly. It's like, and she thought of something, she had to write it down before she forgot. It ended up causing her to journal. So let's say you want to do that. It's like, I'm going to set that timer before I check my email, before I take care of the world. I'm going to journal. So I'm starting the stuff in the morning that you have to do includes, you chain it, you link it to doing something. I don't care if it's 30 seconds, or at night, I'm going to read a page. No, I'm not going to read a chapter. No, I'm not going to read 5 pages. I want to start reading more. Turn off that TV, stop looking at Instagram on my phone. I'm going to read every night before I turn off the light. I read 1 page. So you start linking it to something you already do. So that's habit chaining or habit stacking as it's called now, because habit chaining was something that they started doing in the 30s and 40s, and there are studies on it. And then some great books and systems came out in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them. Atomic Habits is one book, and the other book I think is 10-minute Habits.
Tiny Habits
Tiny
is
Habits.
another one.
Yeah,
and
that's the
there
one.
was another
And it's
one
all
that I read
this.
when I was doing this. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. The power of a habit is incredible.
And to get rid of a habit, what is the cost of that habit? Because your brain wants to be rewarded. Why do you do something? Because you're used to it. From the second you wake up in the morning, what you do every day consistently is a habit. It just is. It's who you are. So what you do all day, consistently every day, is your identity. It's who you are. So if you want to get rid of a bad habit, first you define it as a bad habit. Why do you do that bad habit? First, find why. What can replace that with a good habit? You need a reward. You really do. Some people put like a paper clip every time they think of doing that bad habit. I'm going to put a paper clip, and then they see the jar full of paper clips. It's a win. It's a celebration. If you have emotional eating, that's a whole nother subject we can coach through. But what triggers that supposed emotion? What can calm that trigger down? Maybe it is doing 5 minutes of breath work. Maybe it is something else, but something that truly isn't like, okay, I'm going to do this breath work. Damn it, it didn't work. No, it's like, what will work for you? Maybe doing some jumping jacks instead of eating. Maybe calling your accountability partner. I want to emotionally eat. Whatever it is, something will replace that.
Love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. And I'll have the contact information for how people can find you. So now I know we can find you on Instagram, and is it Ronnie O Life Coach? Ronnie Lowe Life Coach? Ronnie,
RONNIELO Life Coach. It's just the first 2 letters of my last name, Lowe. Ronnie Lowe Life Coach. And I think I'm Ronnie Life Coach in Clubhouse. Great. And find me on LinkedIn. That's where I love going on LinkedIn and reading other people's shares and lots of stuff. And I started a Facebook group, and I know you'll put this in the context, that I would love for anybody at any age, but it's called Fab After 40 Women's Health and Mindset Hub. And it's a really fun group where we just share everything about wellness and go in there and share about. So it's a really
great resource. Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time and the tips.
Yvonne,
and
I also want to celebrate you. How old is your podcast now?
A year and a half, just about. I started in June of 2020. Yeah, that was crazy. My life has completely changed since I made the decision to do it and started down this path. I feel like a new person. It's been amazing.
And you're not only an expert, so people probably turn to you. How do I start a podcast? How do I do this? You're an expert now. And you're putting out there so much great information from so many different women for other people. So celebrate yourself. I think that's all.
Thank you. And I'm gonna take to heart. I just want you to know that I'm gonna take to heart that taking out the only from those things, because how many times okay, so I'm gonna go on a little rant here, but I can't be the only one who does this.
No, you're
I
not.
did this yesterday. The day that I planned didn't happen, but I did a bajillion things. And I still, at the end of literally every day, I have done a bajillion things to move the ball forward, and it's never enough. And I don't celebrate that I did. Yes, I did that. And I think I'm not the only person who does this, right?
Exactly. It's our own negative self-talk. So look at the negative self-talk, go, but what's the silver lining with the yin for the yang? Did I accomplish? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's my nugget for today that I've taken from my conversation with you. And it's no small thing. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Yay.
Yay.
Well, there you have it. I'm so struck by really one of the first things that Ronnie said when we started talking. She said, it all starts here. And you couldn't see what she was doing, but she was pointing to her head when she said that. It all starts here. Everything that we do and feel originates with how we're thinking. And I kind of like the duality of it all starts here, in that it all starts here from where you are. And if you're looking to change your habits, if you're looking to take on something new, start here. Start here and now. Start fresh. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So I want to remind you, of course, July 12th, put it on your calendar. I hope you will join us. If you can't make it to the Zoom call, join the community anyway. There's going to be lots of good things going on. It'll be kind of like a Facebook group in its own way, but it will not be in Facebook. It'll be in a separate platform. But you can go to midlifeuprising.com to check all that out. If you have any questions, email me or get in touch with me. You can send me a message on Instagram also. So that is it for this week, my friend. Thank you so much for joining and listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.